Daily the Brief with Danny Marie, where podcasting, AI, and pop culture meet. From creator news to what's trending today, we're breaking it down the Danny Marie way. Tips, tools, headlines, and industry tea. Weekdays at 12:45 PST. So grab your notebook, coffee, or your tea. It's Daily the Brief with Danny Marie. Yeah!
The podcast is becoming a product line. The big moves today are not just about making episodes. Patreon is rebuilding around creator businesses. MrBeast is building a creator platform. Netflix and iHeart are expanding on video podcasts. Spotify is tightening podcast analytics, and AI companies are making workflow measurement more serious. What do we want you to take away from today's live stream? This message: your podcast should not be treated like one piece of content. It should, however, be treated like the front door to a business. Hello, it is I, Danny Marie, your podcast bestie, coming to you with another live stream, talking all things podcasting, AI, and pop culture for my podcasters, my content creators out there, and people who have a business and want to use their podcast as the entry point to their product line. This is your funnel, if you will. So we're going to get into the main topic on the latter half of the live stream. But first, we want to talk all things podcasting, AI, and pop culture. Starting with this, Patreon is repositioning as a creator business platform. So Patreon CEO Jack said the company has moved beyond payment tools into discovery, native video feeds, chat, and creator-owned audience relationships. He described Patreon as an index of small business media companies and pushed back against AI content flooding and big platforms using creator work without consent. What does this mean? Patreon is not just a tip jar anymore. It wants to be your own community layer. Here's what you can do if you want to better position yourself using a platform such as Patreon. Create one paid offer tied to your podcast. It could be a private feed behind a tiered paywall. You can set your monthly office hours, bonus questions and answers, or behind the scene build updates. I spoke about this on a previous live stream, comparing Patreon to platforms like PayHip or Fanbase, to name a few. So go find that, come back and tell me what you think about that video. Now, MrBeast is building a creator platform. Jimmy Donaldson's Beast Industries hired much of the team from Petra and Anderson Horowitz-backed creator e-commerce startup as he builds a new platform connecting creators with brands and business opportunities. MrBeast also hired former Google and Uber executive Shiva as Chief Product and Tech Officer. What does this mean? The biggest creators are becoming infrastructure companies. So this is what you can do. Stop thinking, how do I get a sponsor? And start thinking, what system can I build that helps creators, brands, or local businesses connect? My boys and I love MrBeast and what he's doing, not necessarily the person, but the brand, right? And what he's built in partnership with platforms like Amazon, and now taking everything that he's learned to create his own network, right? He has a big, huge brand. We love MrBeast games. We love MrBeast chocolate. And similarly, you too can become a big name and have all of these other products that you offer and sell, and podcasting being one of them. So stop going after the big sponsors who you think can open the doors for you, because I think they're being very stingy with their money, but carve out your own lane and use MrBeast as a model. Ina Garden is launching a video podcast with Vox Media. So Ina Garden's upcoming Happy Hour with Ina Garden, Garten, will launch in September as a video podcast filmed in her New York apartment. People reports the deal followed a competitive bidding process and landed with Vox Media. Video podcasting is being packaged like relaxed TV, you guys. So yes, I hear people who say, I'm not ready for video podcasting yet. And that's a fair statement, because it does take a bit more work with you having to show up and feel like you are presentable. Not only that, everything basically has to be sharp and on point. But if you consider moving into video podcasting, consider this as an opportunity, or what could become the prelude to things like relaxed television, because now we're seeing podcasts on Netflix, podcasts on Roku, and podcasts on platforms like Vox Media. So here's an action that you can use today. Build a repeatable visual concept, whether that's something you're doing at your kitchen table, like I am, a studio couch, a car conversation, business audit desk, creator roundtables, or just two people on a Zoom. Give the room a job. And you don't have to feel like you need to be in a podcast studio paying thousands of dollars to get discovered. Just show up consistently, right? And there may be bigger opportunities for you down the road. Now, Netflix and iHeart are expanding video podcast. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Netflix and iHeart Media expanded their video podcast partnership with shows from Martha Stewart, Kate and Oliver Hudson, and Lily Pons. Audio stays broadly distributed while Netflix gets exclusive video podcast inventory. Here's the takeaway. Video podcasts are now streaming platform content. And what you can do starting today is record one episode segment that looks good enough for TV. Make sure to have strong lighting, clear framing, clean audio, and named segments. Spotify's 30-second play metric still changes the game. So Spotify now counts podcast plays when someone listens or watches for at least 30 seconds. It says this better reflects intentional consumption and filters accidental starts. Now, the takeaway here is that the intro is no longer fluff. It means conversion. So in those first 30 seconds, try to give it the best that you've got to make a lasting impression. And this could help you with your impressions and helping get to the top of the algorithm if you're studying the power of the hook and capturing people's attention. It will potentially be honored, according to Spotify, if you can work those first 30 seconds. Use this formula to get yourself started. The problem, the promise, the proof, and the start. OpenAI added enterprise usage analytics and spend control. So OpenAI announced a new ChatGPT enterprise analytic and spend control, so organizations can track credit usage by user, product, and model. So AI is becoming a managed business expense and not just something you're using to play around with, right? It's becoming a tool to really help, even with them having a ChatGPT store now, or other ways for you to become discovered. Track your AI workflow weekly. Research the time that it saved you, clips that were generated, captions that were written, your show notes that were drafted, sponsor summaries that were produced. Now, if AI saves you time, prove it. Google DeepMind partnered with A24. So Google DeepMind and A24 announced a partnership to explore AI tools for filmmakers and creative professionals. You know, we're moving in a time and space where microdramas are becoming seemingly popular, even moving to some of the film festivals. A few examples: Issa Rae, Country Wayne, right? They're putting a lot of work and intentionality into producing these micro dramas, and they're becoming very popular and recognized with TikTok, with Facebook, with YouTube. I really enjoyed listening to Country Wayne on Earn Your Leisure. That is Rashad and Troy. And he gave a lot of gems and insights. If you're interested in micro dramas, this is also a conversation that we have sporadically on Fanbase in Social Audio to talk a lot about how we can all leverage using micro dramas. So it's a conversation, and it makes sense why Google DeepMind and A24 are announcing partnerships for AI tools specifically for filmmakers and creative professionals. So AI is making moves, going deeper into production and not just writing prompts. Test AI in your production support, meaning your episode structure, your shot lists, guest research, clip selection, title testing, and repurposing. Viral Watch, Dominican Sisters Open Mic. The Dominican Sisters Open Mic podcast continues to surge on TikTok. Cosmopolitan reports Spotify saw a 3,500% increase in listeners since February, with strong millennial and Gen Z attention. So specificity beats generic polish. Your action is to identify your unexpected angle and what makes your show unmistakably yours, your unique value proposition. One of the things I coach my podcast community on is anyone who's saying things like, I don't have competition, doesn't really take their job and their role very seriously and has no idea what they're doing. And while it may feel true on the surface, you do have some competition, but you need to figure out what is your unique value proposition amongst your competitors. So I encourage a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and your threats. Let's not forget that threats, but there is opportunity there. Do your due diligence, do your research, and identify what is your unique value proposition, what is your unexpected angle, and what makes your show unique. Chart Watch, Apple Podcasts. So Apple's current US chart shows Dr. Death, 5 Miles from Home, The Last 12 Weeks, Serial, and Love Trapped among some of the top series. So true crime is seemingly popular in the podcasting space. Documentary storytelling, serialized tension, and clear emotional stakes are still moving. Why I believe that these are very popular is because just like the avid book readers, you leave people on a cliffhanger, you give them something that they want to return back to, you making it episodic, or as we said here, serialized tension is keeping their interest, right? And wanting them to come back for more. So try turning one of your episodes into a story arc that has a setup, a conflict, a reveal, a lesson, and of course, a takeaway. All right, so you know that we like to also provide you with a vocabulary term, because who would I be if I wasn't me, your podcast bestie, trying to also educate you on terminology. One of the biggest misnomers or mistakes that I've noticed in this space is that people confuse live streaming with broadcasting and podcasting. They're all three different things, but some people like to teeter the line and like to cross over into the other categories. So they're all very different. So that's why I thought it was important to start including vocabulary terms. So when you speak to a potential sponsor or when you're trying to grow your audience, your messaging is very clear, your positioning is crystal clear. So today's vocabulary word is one that you may have heard on the platform before: dynamic ad insertion. Dynamic ad insertion. Dynamic ad insertion is when ads are automatically placed into podcast episodes by your hosting or ad platform. So in plain English, an old episode can serve a new ad. So depending on what the platform that you're using is promoting at the time, the ads can change. Or depending on the audience or what have you, the ads can change. So keeping that in mind. All right. Now this matters because your back catalog can keep earning money if your show has evergreen episodes and the right hosting setup. Audience pulse check. So audiences are rewarding clear hooks. So going back to Spotify's 30-second metric, pressures content creators to earn attention faster. Specific personality. So in the case of Ina Garten and the Dominican sisters, they show that having a strong identity travels. Video familiarity, meaning Netflix and iHeart and Vox are treating podcasts like casual streaming shows, and creator-owned spaces like Patreon are becoming platforms that bet on their creators owning audience relationships beyond social media feeds. So the audience wants personality, clarity, and a reason to stay close. You know me, I constantly say this, and I'm sure you've heard this. People fall in love with the person before the platform. All right, you guys. Now, let's take a quick short break, and then we're going to come back and get into the crux of today's live stream, which is building your podcast product ladder. So we're talking opportunities here. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, if you are not aware, we are doing street team promotion. So the FIFA World Cup is in Seattle, and we've been out at many of the watch party zones, making sure that we're visible and we're representing the companies that we have collaborated with. We do have a few more slots available. So if you are interested, feel free to get in touch with us. Use that QR code. You can also scan the code at the very top. And by the way, feel free to also contact us using this link. All right. All right. So create a podcast product ladder. What does this look like? So you have one free episode. You take that long form content to generate short clips. Then you disseminate that content via email or to social media platforms like Fanbase or Facebook. Create a live room, right? So that you can replay and rewatch it together. In that live space, you can present your paid offer. And from that, you've built enough attention to where you can now leverage that attention to create something like an in-person event, an online event, or a conference. All right, so I'm going to just say that again, the short version, the appendix or appended, free episode, short clips, email, fan-based Facebook posts, live room, paid offer, event, or conference. Now, this is how a podcast becomes a business instead of a weekly audio chore. The emerging opportunity here, build a creator or business connector offer. So inspired by MrBeast's platform move, think smaller and think local. Start a podcast guest directory. Start local sponsor matchmaking apps. Create a meetup. Create a small business spotlight series. Create paid podcast audit circles or a media kit workshop. You don't need MrBeast Industries money. You need a clear room where useful people meet. Now there's a pattern here. Patreon is building creator-owned community infrastructure. MrBeast is building creator brand infrastructure. Netflix and iHeart are building video podcast distribution infrastructure. Spotify is building podcast measurement infrastructure. OpenAI and Google are building AI workflow infrastructure. The through line here, the winners are not just creating content, they're building systems around content. So a podcast alone is attention. A product ladder turns that attention into movement. Level 1 should be the free attention. Your podcast episodes, your clips, your Facebook posts, your fan base posts. Level 2 is where you build the relationship. So you're nurturing that audience. Your email list, your private community, your live streams, community conversations. Level 3 is paid access, bonus episodes, Q&A workshops, audits, private feeds. And then level 4 is your business infrastructure, your events, sponsorships, creator networks, consulting, courses, local partnerships. There's plenty of examples that are out there, but I am an example of this as well. As you've seen, I do my live stream. We have the Facebook group. Then we have options where we teach you a course. That's the paid access. And then we meet in person to do the event, things that are sponsored and supported by other brands, building a network. I offer consulting, paid courses, and local partnerships. So the mistake that many people experience is trying to monetize with strangers, people who could care less or don't know anything about what you're doing. You have to warm them up first, and nobody wants to be proposed to on the first date. That is weird and awkward. And even I have had to learn how to get better about that, right? Because my thing is solutions. I hear complaining all of the time, but people rarely want to take that next step to find the solution to many of their problems. So I'm always solution, and just ramming things down people's throat. Pause. But you know what I'm trying to say here. People need to get a feel for who you are, understand whether or not you're trustworthy, whether they can learn from you, even if what you might be doing is very valuable. Not everybody is going to learn from you. There's a difference in your voice, in your cadence, in your tonality, in the way you teach things. Some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic. And so if you're not offering that, it's a possibility that they will bypass you altogether. All right, so give people an opportunity to warm up to you, and you can do that by having these different things in place. between level 1 and level 3 before you build them up to the business offer, right? Again, nobody wants to be proposed to on the first date, especially by a podcast with a 4-minute long intro. All right. So you guys, with that said, let us keep in mind that the people, the creme de la creme, the people rising to the top are the people that are thinking beyond the episode. Start thinking more along the lines of building a product, and your podcast is the very first thing in that product line, in that funnel. That said, again, comment, like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell. One more time, we are still doing street promo, and so I'm going to share that information with you before we close out. You can find us via the link. You can use the QR code or the flyer. We appreciate your time. We hope you have a lovely day.
Daily the Brief with Danny Marie, where podcasting, AI, and pop culture meet. From creator news to what's trending today, we're breaking it down the Danny Marie way. Tips, tools, headlines, and industry tea. Weekdays at 12:45 PST. So grab your notebook, coffee, or your tea. It's Daily the Brief with Danny Marie.